Oh, they've done it! Steven Tirada, an instant hero! Can you believe it? Plenty attacking! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
Blau und Weiß sein Leben lang. Herzlich willkommen zurück auf SchalkeMerica. Welcome back to episode 163, season 6 of SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Joining me as always, co-host Jack Mangan.
Is it really season 6?
Yeah.
It's just crazy when you say it like that. Time flies when you're having fun. Not
You
that
know
we've
how-
been having fun, but you know.
You know how I know it's season 6? Because when we first started, you're 24, and then this year you hit a landmark, right? A milestone.
I did. A week ago, I turned the big 3-0. So
Yes.
officially on the back stretch now.
We've been together more than some couples, just saying.
That's true. That is very true.
Well, at least celebrity couples. At least celebrity
Yeah.
couples.
And minimal counseling so far. You know, minimal relationship counseling. So we've been doing a pretty good job.
Schalke's been our counselor. We've been grieving over that over the last several years. God, it's been a long. Okay,
Our gripes have been directed elsewhere. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. But yeah, Schalke, what a interesting weekend. Wolfsburg 0-0. You could take this two ways, I think, Jack. There's some good and some bad out of this game. I mean, crazy game. I mean, I don't know. Where do you want to get with this game?
Well, yeah, I think we should just start. I would be interested to hear just kind of your thoughts on how you feel we look in general, because I would say, week one against Cologne, you could argue, obviously, some decisions didn't go our way that could have changed the results of that match, but I don't think we looked great overall in that game.
Agreed.
I thought we looked much better against Gladbach and looked very competent, looked like we belonged. I think there were stretches of this game, particularly more in the first half against Wolfsburg, where we looked decent. And I would say that we looked relatively well organized overall, and like decently drilled. But second half against Wolfsburg, we got outplayed pretty badly. The possession in all the games so far is pretty poor. So I guess what I would say is this: is like, I guess on one hand, I don't feel like we've necessarily gotten like played off the pitch by anyone. So I feel like from a competitive level, we kind of seem like we could be okay and like, could fight and could belong in the league at the moment. But when you look at some of the underlying statistics, like our XG difference, things like that,
Passing accuracy,
all kinds of stuff. I mean, the number of shots that we've conceded, I think we've conceded the most crosses. I mean, there's a lot of underlying numbers that don't look good and don't project well. Obviously only 3 games in here, but so there's kind of a disconnect, I think, between maybe some of the results that we've gotten, like, draw against Wolfsburg, despite their last season, draw against Gladbach. These are decent results.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Because I'm kind of in this weird middle ground of not being entirely sure what direction I feel like this season's going to go in for us.
Yeah, I also don't know where this season's going to go. I think against Cologne, we started out well very early in that match, and it got quickly lopsided in terms of possession in favor of Cologne. And obviously the red card didn't help. And, then one thing after another, all these disallowed goals, VAR against us. That game aside, the Gladbach game was much better. For sure, much better. We look like we belong. Daniel Farka said we look like we belong. We made some good attempts in the game. There was like a 30-minute stretch. Maybe you can narrow it down a 10-minute stretch where Gladbach really dominated that game. And then for the most part, we looked pretty good. And then this last game looked okay. I think the two things I take away from this is that defensively, it's mirrors very much how we started last season in Zweite Liga, where defensively we looked decent. Offensively, we looked not inept, but struggle at times, most of the time. There's some instances where we look good, but for the most part, it's not that great. I love what I'm seeing defensively. We are looking solid. Looks like Yoshida and Tiao or Kaminsky for that fact, but especially Chow, excuse me. They look good back there. Brunner, I like Brunner back there. Oyan's been decent defensively. Kral, Kraus, and whoever else is playing with them look decent as a defensive unit. Very compact and organized defensively, but then again, offensively, not so great. And it's a stark contrast between us newly promoted, how we looked, and then our friends at Werder Bremen, how they looked against Dortmund this weekend, where they attacked them and got 3 goals and won the game.
I mean, yeah, when you have 29% possession in a match, you need to be effective on the counter. You just kind of have to be. And I think, honestly, Wolfsburg limited the effectiveness of those transition moments for us a lot in this game as compared to the Gladbach match. I think we looked pretty toothless for the entire thing. So, yeah, we defended decently well in this game. They had, a lot more shots than we did, but a lot of those weren't on target and weren't particularly dangerous. That being said, Schwolow did have to make a couple of big saves. So there were some chances there. Just offensively, you wonder. I mean, yeah, we had the penalty situation, which we could have had a goal on for that, obviously. But overall, I don't think we created a whole lot. And if we're going to be living and dying by transition football, we're going to have to be effective at it at a much higher rate, I think, than we are at the moment.
You know who's good on the transition? Union Berlin, but we'll get to them. Jacob says Yoshida has been a rock. I agree. I think defensive performers so far may be representative of the quality. That's true. And also, I think it's two different mindsets of how you want to approach being a newly promoted team. You'd be very defensive, don't give much, which is a good transition from how we've been in this last several years. Or B, you just play your style and hope it works, right? And so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Both styles, really. If you look at the statistics, I mean, obviously you mentioned, possessions, lopsided, big time. Corners, lopsided. Passing accuracy, that's always telling to me how you're looking, all right? And I thought against Cologne wasn't good.
That's a good shout. Yeah, the passing accuracy problem.
Gladbach, we were a little bit better, and we just played well. The counterattack was working for us. This game, 63% passing accuracy. That's terrible. If you're going to play the counterattack and have limited opportunities, you need to be very good in the passing. And Schalke has not been. Careless turnovers all day, left and right. Whether it's Kral, whether it's anybody you look on the team, the passing has not been good. We can't string 3-4 passes together.
Yeah, and you saw that particularly, I think, kind of in the middle of the second half, there was a period of 5 to 10 minutes where we almost couldn't get out of our own half at any point. We were struggling to string those 2-3 passes together, and Wolfsburg had a lot of possession in our final third that we just couldn't really push them off of. Had a number of also just really, this is just a random aside, but a number of really poor attempted clearances in this game, which was just strange, like the fact that we couldn't clear balls convincingly. But yeah, it was a 29% possession, 60% passing accuracy, 13% of shots on target, only 8 shots taken. I mean, you're not gonna win football matches with that kind of an offensive performance. Like I said, I mean, I think we looked decent at times last week. I think a lot of those opportunities, like I said, came in transition at times, and we didn't have a lot of success in that regard here, and weren't able to make up for it in a lot of other ways. Yeah, and then like I said, frustrating to see Tirada kind of struggle early in the season, because we all want that success to translate to the top division for him. I think we're all rooting for him. And yeah, unfortunate moment for him in the match today, which we'll get to.
Yeah. Starting lineup was pretty similar to what we saw in the last game against Gladbach, except with the exception that Latza was in there in the midfield 5 or whatever you want to call it. Or it was actually a 4-4-2. I guess they were looking at it. Overall, I thought Kral played a lot better in this game than he did against Gladbach, because he had some very shaky moments, costly mistakes in that game.
True.
And Schwolow had a big bounce back. I think he looked excellent, had probably 4 big saves in the game at least. A lot of them from point blank as well. I thought Brunner, Yoshida, Chow, and Oyan were decent. Kraus always doing his thing. Lots okay for me. And then the front three, or the top 3 guys, Salazar, Bolter, and Tirada. I think we looked okay in that first half, but I think the killer was, it ended up being an even game because Tirada misses 2 penalties basically, and they get a goal disallowed, rightly so. So it ended up being an even game for the most part. But yeah, man, the early season struggles for Tirada, not what you want to see. So it's got to be a mental thing. It has to be a mental thing. And I was hoping he would get that goal and the penalty to kind of wake him up a little bit, and missing that first one, I'm like, poorly placed, by the way. Takes a second shot, exact same place, exact same poorly placed. Casteels is one of the best goalkeepers in terms of penalty stops in the league. Ruined his confidence.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk about the penalty down, we'll talk about the penalty down. I mean, you and I have said this, I think, so many times on this podcast, and this may have no bearing in terms of the actual science of penalties or what the data says at all. So I could be talking out of my ass, which I do quite frequently. But when I kind of view like the face of a goal, I kind of divide it up into 5 zones, kind of vertically, in the same way that you could divide up, the field into kind of 5, bars or whatever. And to me, like those second and fourth zones are like the no man's land, where you do not want to hit a penalty. You want to find one of the corners, or you just want to hit it like hard down the middle. And particularly, on some of these tamer, less powerful efforts where they're trying to curl it, and then it only gets in that sort of like no man's zone. If the goalkeeper goes the right way, they're always going to save that.
Yeah.
It's very rare that sneaks under, one of them in that kind of a situation. You're much better off just like hitting it hard and hitting it straight, because they're probably going to dive, that kind of a thing. So his first penalty was, it was pretty atrocious. Like, I don't think that was a good penalty take at all. And I think it's also just because we know like the kind of authority that Tirada can hit some of these balls with. So it's disappointing to see him take a penalty in a way that is different to how we, think that they would maybe play to his strengths a little bit. And then for him to go and do the exact same thing, like maybe not exactly the same approach or like curl on the second shot, but basically hits it to the same spot on the ground, weak again. Both of these didn't have much purchase on them. Kind of shocking, particularly the second attempt. I didn't necessarily have an issue with them trying to give the second attempt to somebody else, or Tirada kind of taking it again. I don't have a problem with that.
No.
And I like the confidence, honestly. But yeah, kind of poor. Maybe you let Marius Bolter take penalties kind of here on out for the most part. He's been decent at them. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I even said during the live stream is like, yeah, I love Simon Tirada, but I think he needs to give up those penalties from now on and let Bolter, maybe even Salazar or Ovion take the kicks going forward, just because they're a lot better, it seems like. Yeah, and you hate to see that. You hope he gets a goal here soon to kind of wake himself up, because if he goes 5-6 games without a goal, you might be looking at, okay, we'll have to bring in Polter, just kind of wake him up or something. I don't know, because it's going to be the same thing we hear all the time. Oh, in the top league, he can't score. We don't want to hear that. We want him to break that duck and break it with us, but I don't know.
The lineup real quick, back to that for a second. So I kind of saw this, at least against the ball in particular, as more of like a 4-2-3-1 this week. So last week I saw it kind of as like a 4-4-2 largely. This time around I saw it actually was kind of Latza and Kral as almost like a double pivot. Right. And then Kraus playing in sort of that central attacking kind of role, which I thought was very interesting. So maybe this could be me being ignorant of, where he's typically played historically, in his time at Leipzig, but I didn't anticipate him necessarily playing in that kind of advanced of a role. And even later in the game, when we kind of changed shape a couple times, there were times where it almost looked like we were in a 4-4-2 defensively, and Kraus was up alongside like Tirada, with Bolter playing like wide left. So like Kraus was playing in some advanced positions, and I thought it was interesting, particularly like, I know Danny Latza is more of like a holding midfielder, but given that he's smaller, a little bit shiftier, and Kraus is more of a physical presence, I was surprised that he was the one that was deeper and that Kraus was the one that was pushed forward. I just thought that was an interesting wrinkle. Yeah. But beyond that, pretty much what we'd expected. And I would say right off the bat, Malik Chow, for example, who I think I was a little bit critical of last week, with Marcus Thuram kind of little brothering him a couple of times. I thought Chow looked much more convincing, and much more present in this game, which was nice to see.
Especially because Nemicha, who is a striker for Wolfsburg, was active in the game. He did a pretty good job on him. I think the lineup is a pretty strong one, honestly. Casteels, is a very good goalkeeper, very underrated. Van de Ven had a very good game, the defender for Wolfsburg, as did Otavio. That left-hand side they kind of focus on. Maximilian Arnold's going to do his thing, right? And Gila Vogi, I think, was involved a lot. And then coming off the bench, Baku was very impressive, as is Maximilian Philipp. Obviously, Cruza is somebody you always have to be wary of. And so, I didn't even realize Nemicha's brother, I guess, was on the team. But
when they showed Cruza early in the match sitting on the bench, and I'm like, he's going to be subbed in and he's going to score, because Max Cruz is just one of those guys for us. And fortunately, he didn't, although he had an opportunity at one point that he kind of scuffed that maybe could have been more dangerous.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I think overall, the team did very well defensively. The goal that they did have, Gila Vogi ended up scoring, or Maximilian Arnold had the free kick. They said he touched it or not. Ended up being offside, so it didn't matter. It was a right call. I thought maybe it was goal interference in first, like we saw that a couple games ago. But no, it was offside. A good call and correct call. And yeah, it's the balance of the game overall in terms of the best chances. I mean, I guess it's slightly in favor of Wolfsburg, but we played so well defensively. I think we deserved a point in that game. I think, despite being so dominated possession-wise. I don't know. Did you think we deserved a draw?
I mean, I think on the balance of the first half, yeah, probably. On the second half, less so. I don't think we looked very good in the second half. I think Wolfsburg had the lion's share of the better chances in that half. And even though like our XG on the day was kind of equal, what 0.75 of that is going to be attributed to the penalty alone.
Yeah.
So we didn't create a whole lot outside of that chance, which I actually think was kind of a soft penalty to begin with, as far as penalties go on the spectrum. One of the ones that we probably would have been kind of annoyed by if it happened against us, even if it, not to say it wasn't a penalty, but just kind of one of those ones where it's like he goes down kind of easily. It's not like he was dribbling and gets tripped up. Like it's a 50-50 ball in the air kind of a thing. So, yeah, I don't know.
Dive today that we saw in the Man City friendly against Barca. I don't know if you saw that, but
I didn't see that yet, but I did see they were playing a friendly, which was funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say like the point I was trying to make earlier is like I do feel like we've mostly looked like we've belonged, and the organization was good. Like we were mostly difficult to kind of play through again, as we were against Gladbach. They did have some opportunities, and Schwolow did have to make a couple big saves, and credit to him for doing that this week. So I don't know. I think probably Wolfsburg looked a little bit better on the day than we did, for sure. But a draw isn't like massively unfair to them.
And we didn't lose a place to them in the table. Neither team changed in the table. We're both on 2 points, and they're still behind us. So I mean, ended up being a good weekend. Obviously, with Dortmund losing, it's always a good weekend, especially the manner that they lost, right? But yeah, it was. I take a point better than no points for sure. So 2 draws and a loss is not the greatest result, but at least we don't have 3 losses, right? we started a couple seasons ago. So yeah, I mean, the next several games are winnable. Right, we got Union next at home. Luckily, I think they're a monster at their home in Berlin, but on the road they can be had. We got Stuttgart on the horizon, as well as Bochum. Obviously, the big derby, Riviera derby, coming up after that, and then Augsburg. So many of those games are winnable. We'll see what we do in those games. That'll be a real tell of how the season's going to look. I think after like 10 games or so, we'll have a good idea. I think, but yeah, still early to tell. Some wrinkles offensively that we need to figure out. I think defensively, I like what I'm seeing. I've been majorly impressed with Yoshida. Again, I gave him a lot of crap when he came over, but I think he is doing the part. He's been a teacher for Chow, assuming we keep him to the end of the window, right? It's possibility still with 10 days ago or less than 10 days ago. So we'll see. But I think Yoshida back there, Brunner has been, I think, nice to have consistency on the right-hand side. we get to see him now. He's back. CD Sane is supposed to be in the lineup also, or on the bench to start the game.
Is he really?
Yeah, that's what I heard. I don't know if it's official, but that's what the rumors that I heard today and yesterday. So, which would be good because we need some offensive flair somewhere to show up, right? Not like we have an Amin Harit to use at the moment. That we will use, I should say. So we'll see.
Yeah, we need another youngster to get excited about now that they got rid of all of ours.
maybe we gotta go on a veteran here, like I can't say Loda, he's gone already.
Yeah.
Sorry, too soon. Speaking of veterans, Martin Frazel, he picked out a team. It's Kramer's old team. It's Bielefeld. Interesting there, signed on a free. Good to see Tobias Moore and Ibrahima Cisse back in training. Picked up a little knocks. Poulter too, right? He picked up a little injury in training. He did play the game out, so I don't think it's anything major, but you don't want to have him injured and Tarota not firing on cylinders. It's not a good look. We need Jordan Larson to kind of pick things up.
Yeah, let's talk about him briefly for a second since you bring him up. Obviously, cameo appearances later in games. He's not getting, significant minutes so far to really try to make an impression, particularly when the initial game plans tend to be more in place earlier in matches, when sometimes there's a little bit more structure. But yeah, I haven't seen much from him so far that really does anything for me. How about you?
No, you see glimpses, but you haven't seen enough of him on the ball to really make a fair judgment, honestly. We've seen, Poulter has had glimpses here and there as well, but I think when you're looking at Larson, you're expecting to see someone who can carry the ball, dribble past some guys, make some passes, crosses, whatever, and we haven't really seen much of that. Now, maybe it's because possession's been so lopsided, you really can't do much unless it's on a counterattack. And whenever he's on the counterattack, he's probably so far back he can't catch up with the play. By the time he catches up, turnover and it goes the other way, right? So I don't know. It's I think the way we're playing at the moment is not helping the cause. But what I've seen so far, it's nothing great. And I hopefully in the near future they change things up. They'll have an opportunity here against Union Berlin this weekend, and then in Stuttgart and Bochum. But yeah, it's we'll see. Offensively, we need some help.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, with Zalazar in the lineup, it's going to be hard to kind of unseat him in sort of one or more of those wide roles. And if we're playing in sort of like I said, I think, if it's a 4-3-3, like you said, or like I said, if it's a 4-2-3-1 to kind of start, and Bolter's the other person that's in one of those wide roles, I think Bolter's been playing very well for the most part, and so he's going to be likewise difficult to replace in the starting 11. So I think for the time being, it's probably likely to be some of those more cameo appearances for Larson, unless there's an injury or just some rotational concerns for fitness management.
Yeah, and I think for Terodo, who's been struggling, I think for him at least, kind of like we saw with at least Guido Burgstaller for a while, for a couple years ago, where like if he's not scoring goals, at least put the work rate in to make that difficult for the manager. That like, hey, at least he's working his socks off. Maybe hopefully something he does defensively will inspire him to finally get a goal or whatever. Who knows? Maybe in the right place, at the right time. But at least he's putting the work rate in at the moment defensively. It seems like a lot of times, maybe too deep sometimes, but he's putting the work in defensively. He just got to get a goal here. So we'll see. I don't know. Link up play. There was a little bit in the beginning of the game where we looked pretty good. A lot of quick 1-2 passing, I think, on the counterattack, which what I think will work. But we just got to hit those passes. We're very inaccurate, and that's a big problem for us. So I don't know. We'll see. Here's a quote. So going into this game, we go to play obviously Union Berlin. They're very good. They're every year since they've been in the Bundesliga, they've been trending upwards. Last year they finished in a Europa League spot. They have a really good chance of being in the Champions League spot this year, especially if their home form can carry on to the road. But they interviewed Bulter before the match or before the match this weekend here, and here's some of his thoughts here. Let's see if I can play the video.
Auf jeden Fall. Ich glaube, letztes Jahr sind sie, sogar 5. oder 6. geworden, ich weiß gar nicht. Ja, beeindruckend, also wie ich es gerade schon gesagt habe. Ich glaube, eine sehr unangenehme Mannschaft, gegen die es sehr schwer ist zu spielen. Ja, aber deswegen spielen wir jetzt Bundesliga, um uns mit den Besten zu messen. Und ja, es wird ein intensives Spiel, aber ich glaube, ja, wir haben auch Chancen, dort 3 Punkte jetzt zu holen.
So basically, for those who don't follow English, German. Bolter was basically saying, it's going to be an intensive game. They're expecting it to be very difficult. Obviously, Union Berlin is a strong club, but they have full confidence that they can get the 3 points in this game. And I think with the right mentality and playing a Union Berlin team who is not as good on the road as they are at home, there's an opportunity here. We got to play. I think tactically we got to be a lot better. Offensively, I think defensively we're fine, but defensively or offensively we need to do a lot better, I think. But got like the optimism from Maurice Bolter. What else is he going to say, right? Or no, we're going to lose, we're going to get bombed. No, he's not going to say that. But, we got to have some kind of hope.
Yeah, I am a little bit concerned about Union Berlin being able to get in behind, especially with, like Oweyan being a pretty advanced presence a lot of the times. There is space to get in behind those. Brunner, I think, his default position has been a little bit deeper on the right-hand side. But, yeah, and obviously, once again, SchalkeMerica, so we'll be watching Sibachu. I think he goes by Sibachu in the Bundesliga as opposed to PFOC. I think at least that's what I've been hearing on some of the highlights I've seen. But some nice highlights from him early on too. So hopefully we get to take a look at him, and or maybe hopefully not. Hopefully we don't get to take a look at him based on his form. But yeah, always interesting. Obviously in advance of the World Cup, there's an endless conversation about who's going to be the number 9 for the U.S. men's national team. The hashtag Resurgence coming recently with Josh Sargent scoring that brace. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, and Union Berlin, I mentioned earlier, they're good on the counterattack. They tore Leipzig apart on the counterattack. They have Becker and Jordan Sibachu, who are very good. Sibachu seems to be scoring goals right now. Granted, it's only 2-3 goals, but he's putting in the back of the net. He's putting against some good teams, good placement. He's in the right place at the right time. Becker, he's a very good player. I mean, we thought we had headaches with Baku last week. Becker is pretty good, and we got to keep an eye on him. The counterattack is going to be the lethal part against us. We have to Chow and Yoshida. Yoshida's not really that fast, so especially Chow has got to be mindful of this when he likes to advance forward as much as he does. Yoshida will probably draw back a little bit more. And we'll see what Bruner maybe hang back as well. But Kral and the midfield have to be wary of it because they do like the counter and they do the 1-2 passes very well. Both goals that they scored were on the counterattack, and they come back in lightning pace. So it's going to be interesting to see how we do against them for sure. But again, at home, they're a lot better. At home, they're one of the best teams in the league, right? But on the road, it's where they struggle, and this is where I think they can be had. The right game plan, if we attack from the beginning, play the defense that we have been, there's a chance. We just got to put some of these things away, and hopefully freaking Simon Terrotta finally get a goal here.
Yeah, I don't know. And maybe I'll have to watch the Wolfsburg game back and see if there was more happening kind of on the offensive end than I thought there was, despite the limited possession. But yeah, probably need to see a little bit more of a philosophy offensively in the next match if we can, potentially, as opposed to just kind of relying on some of these transition moments. As though, not that we should give that up. Obviously, we're very effective at that. Salazar, particularly when he's in the starting lineup, has the ability to set some of these things off. But I don't know, like something I've noticed, like, for example, like we have one of the highest percentages in the league of like launched balls from the goalkeeper. And we're also one of the worst in the league at completing those. So like our default build-up mechanism is to kick it long, and we're not even being effective at it. Like Schwolow has been pretty poor at that so far. And so like, yeah, just things like that. I don't know. I kind of want to see how the season develops in terms of what we try to do in possession in the final third as opposed to on the counter, and then also kind of what some of our initial when the phase of play resets and we're going out of the goalkeeper, because these are things that I just like in this particular game too against Wolfsburg, I don't think really served us particularly well.
Yeah. And I think the lineup choice will be interesting because we will have to play in the counterattack. We will, because we're going to give them possession. That's just what's going to happen. And obviously, Terrotta doesn't have the pace. Bulter is decent, right? He had actually a pretty good shot early on in the game where he came from the left wing side, took a shot, and forced Casillas to make a save. But he's got fairly good speed. Salazar doesn't have really any speed, right? And I think maybe if we drop Latza, bring in Salazar in that middle, and bring someone else pacier. I don't know who though. Jordan Larson, maybe give him a chance at the start, see what he can do from the beginning. But other than that, there's never really not many choices. I mean, Sidi Sane is going to be on the bench, so maybe if he's ready to go, we can see what he does. But I don't think we can do it from the start. Molet, we still too early to see what he's about. He's about right. You could try him there and put Bulter on the left. I don't know. But I think if you're going to play a counterattacking style that Schalke, I think, are trying to do, you need some pace up there, because the accuracy of your passes are not there. And so at least try to beat some guys one-on-one and hopefully get someone else in the box to pass it to. So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I mean, this is also where like the Mehmet Aydin conversation comes in a little bit, I think, because I think maybe the default opinion on him has been potentially a little bit defensively suspect at times, maybe not as positionally cognizant as he should be, but certainly appears to have a little bit more of a flair going forward than a lot of comparable players. Yeah. Bruner so far, it seems, and I'll have to look, maybe I'm not watching the game correctly, I'll have to go check the stats, but it seems has been mostly a very defensive presence as opposed to Oweyan, who's obviously getting a lot more crosses, being the focal point in the final third to create things. And I think in the few brief stretches last season where we saw Aydin and Oweyan together, despite that right back kind of being a revolving door of personnel, when you had two players that could attack at the same time, that became significantly more difficult for, I think, teams to defend against, because a lot of times you can kind of cheat to one side of the field a little bit more, to create some extra pressure. And if you can quickly switch play to somebody who can get forward on an overlapping run and, play in a dangerous cross, keeps you a little bit more honest, I think, like centrally positionally as a defense. And I don't know. So I'm curious if at some point we decide to give him a look. But I mean, obviously Bruner was with Frank Kramer last year, and I think he was with him previously as well at a different club at some point. So
every team has their teacher's pet who they trust 100% and they're going to play them all the time.
Well, so that's what I mean. So we've had a lot of instability at the right back position. Maybe Bruner was brought in specifically for that reason, familiar with what Frank Kramer kind of wants out of that position and kind of an easy way to slot in. But I don't know. Yeah, keep an eye on Aydin going forward. I don't know if he has any health concerns so far this season. Was he injured or anything, or was he available this entire time?
No, he's been playing with the U23s the last 2-3 weeks, so I think he's healthy enough. Okay, I think 10 minutes as well in the U23s, but yeah, I think that'd be interesting take. I mean, if you have Bruner who plays very defensively, you put Aydin on the right hand side, let him maraud up and down the pitch, trying to get offensive takes, and then slide Bulter off, because I think last year Bulter and Oweyan had a pretty good chemistry going on that left hand side, and they could find each other going in and out. And obviously, Bulter has the freedom to go in if he wants to, or stay wide. And I think having pace on the wing will help a lot. And then if you can get Oweon up there as well, crossing, gives us an opportunity, gives Terodde an opportunity, or Salazar or someone coming on the back end, try to get a goal. So yeah, we'll see. The lineups will be very, very curious. I do hope to see Sidi Sane into the lineup and maybe even get an appearance to see what he can do. But yeah, I mean, opportunities are the depth at this point seems a little light, I think, for us, for not many options coming off the bench. I mean, obviously defensively, I think we're okay. We guys got like Flick, Çalhanoğlu, something like that. But offensively, outside of Jordan Larson, there's really nothing much unless you're looking at the youth squad, and then what kind of, maybe you'll have somebody who can step up. Maybe Draxler ends his contract and comes back to Schalke. I don't know. We'll see.
So, I mean, here's I did want to ask you about Florian Flick, but real quick, since you're talking about lack of offensive depth, this isn't exactly an offensive player, but it's a player that I think has had an impact on the offensive end at times.
Right.
Wasn't there? Did we lose Idrizi? Did we loan him out for the season? Did we sell him?
He's loaned out.
Okay, is that official now?
Definitely Buzz the one.
I think I saw something. Maybe it isn't official yet, but I saw something saying we were potentially going to get rid of Idrizi this season, and I don't know. I mean, like, he's another guy that I feel like is potentially kind of like an interesting X factor off the bench. But
I happen to have transfer marked up right now, and I think Idrizi's been on the youth team. I don't see his name anywhere going in and out, so I think he's with the youth team, honestly. Yeah,
is he like 25 at this point though? He's not even like a particularly young player at this point, but
yeah.
Okay, yeah, maybe not. And like I said, like I didn't. Some of these guys, maybe they're not going to be Bundesliga level for us this season, which is fine. I don't know. It does feel like there's some guys that could potentially play a role here and there that we've kind of let move on.
Where's Lee Dong-jong? We got him. I know he's been injured. I don't know if he might still be injured. That's actually I just thought about that.
I thought I saw some quotes saying that potentially the language barrier has been a little bit of an difficulty too in terms of him getting on the same page in terms of what like the tactical ideas are. Which I would be sort of surprised by because I feel like Schalke is usually pretty good at integrating players in, so that would be disappointing if that's what was kind of holding up his progress. But yeah,
it doesn't say. It says Dries is with the team still, so I imagine it's just that they haven't picked him. He's been maybe playing with the U23s or lately. I don't know.
What's good at you up to these days?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on Flick, by the way? Obviously got subbed in at the start of the second half because Tiny Latza picked up a yellow card in like the 3rd minute, which, like I kind of understand, like, he had so many injury issues last season and now he's like, I'm starting a game, obviously born in Gelsenkirchen, and then just a little bit overzealous and kind of makes a bad tackle early, but
yeah. And I said this in the live stream too, the watch along, that I'd rather Latza get the yellow in the 3rd minute than a Kral or Chow or Yoshida, maybe not Yoshida, but certainly Chow or Kral, because that's a second yellow waiting to happen with those guys. The possibility is there. I think Latza has more composure that he could resist against that red card. But yeah, I thought Flick was okay. I don't know if it's been his best game of the season so far. I thought the Gladbach game was pretty decent, but he was okay. It's good. I think he brings. This season, he seems more offensive-minded than he did last year. In the past, I've looked at him always as a defensive guy who's been his tackling is very underrated. Maybe that's was the thing, right? Is that I've noticed the defensive abilities he has more, and so I focus on that. And I always look at him as a defensive player. But this year, I feel like he's been better on the offensive side in terms of passing and getting plays started. But in this game, I thought he was okay. What'd you make of Flick?
I thought he had a decent performance, some mixed moments. Thought he covered a lot of ground though. So he's a pretty willing runner, like in transition and trying to cover different people as as the play's developing. I don't know. I'm just kind of I still think I probably prefer him to Latza a little bit, but I don't know if I'm just biased at this point. So I'd be curious. I mean, like, so if you had let's say assuming we're playing like a 2-man, kind of defensive midfield. For most of the season, do you have like a top 4 like in order of who you'd want to see there? If it's like Kraus, Flick, Latza.
Well, I definitely want Kraus. I think Kraus should be a lock in this lineup because I think he's been the most consistent player thus far. Kral, I still want to see what he can do, and I like what I've seen. I think the hustle he's provided has been there, so I think he should be definitely starting or definitely playing a lot. In terms of the midfield, I would probably go. I mean, are we including Salazar in this group?
No, I'm talking about more just kind of like people that would probably play like a holding role more often or like a defensive midfield role.
I would probably go Flick over over Latza, and maybe it's our bias because we like him, but I think Flick is good defensively and has better vision than Latza. I think, not that I don't like Latza at all, but I think Flick can make the tackles when he has to defensively. When he's a center back, he's a nightmare, right? But as a defensive midfielder, he's good and has the good vision. He can get up in the field. He can take a shot every now and then. So I'd rather have Flick over Latza. What would your top four be? Order,
yeah, I mean, I also guess it depends on whether or not that Kraus thing was a one-off in this game. Because, like I said, I think he was in a much more advanced position for a lot of this game than he was against Gladbach, and so they're kind of asking him to do different things to some extent in those different roles. But, I mean, assuming it's like I said, the two-man midfield or whatever, and that's kind of what he's going to be playing. I would probably still go like Kral and Kraus first choice, and likewise go Flick over Latza. But Kral definitely has a little bit of challenge discipline issues. He seems slightly out of control physically in some of these, and he's one of those people that I'm concerned is going to get a yellow, and not just because of like the fact that he had one already, but like sometimes it'll zoom in when he's like one-on-one with somebody and he just looks like it could go the wrong way very quickly and he can bowl somebody over. Like I just
you reminds me of David Luiz. One with the hair, but also the aggressiveness, right? Plays very similar to David Luiz in that regards. But yeah, no, I think he is like a bull in a china shop, just wants to go and break things, and he does very good. He's very aggressive. You need that in the Bundesliga, but he gets overzealous at times and goes over the line. He toes that line very finely, and he crosses it often. The referee catches him every so often, and so if he, you got to watch if he can hold off these yellows till late in the game, that's better. But if he gets these early yellows, first half yellows, that's a killer because he has to be less aggressive. He's ineffective at that point, and then you got to bring in someone like a Flick or a Latza, and you're wasting a substitution on that.
Yeah, and obviously, I feel like Zaire doing a little bit of the Sven Jablonskis from last week with the 30-minute yellow card to Latza, so that didn't help. Definitely changes your mindset as a player that early. You got to be a little bit more careful.
Yeah, 100%. So,
shall we talk Schwolow real quick?
Yeah,
just a couple comments. First of all, did dig the all orange kit, even with the orange shoes, looking pretty fresh. Regardless of the goalkeeping aside, looking pretty slick. I don't think he looked particularly good on that disallowed Wolfsburg goal, the Arnold ball that Gila Vogie was offside for. I think he should have done much better on that. But outside of that, did I think make a couple big saves that he didn't have to make necessarily, and made a couple other ones that he should have, like one of the chances late that was like directly at him. Why is his name? It's not Baku. Is it like the right back who got subbed on later?
Baku.
Yeah. So he had a shot like late that was right in the box, kind of went right at him, but he made the saves that he was supposed to make in that regard. So I think, props to him overall for obviously enduring a lot of criticism. I was critical of him last week, and I know there's a lot of that going around, and it's difficult as a goalkeeper to kind of bounce back from those and be mentally strong. And he had a decent performance this week. So credit.
I think goalkeepers, when they come to Gelsenkirchen, have to understand that you're playing behind recently of the likes of Manuel Neuer and Ralf Fährmann. Two
good
guys,
Fährmann, yeah.
Good Fährmann, early Fährmann, right? And so that's a lot of heavy. The criticism is going to be there because you're always going to be comparing to those guys. If you're a guy who's mobile, you're going to be compared to Neuer, and if you're a good shot stopper, you're going to compare to Fährmann. And so it's tough for the goalie, and I get it, but you still have a job to do. And I think I made this comment in the watch along that there's things that Schwolow does well, and I think that's his reaction saves and just making saves in general. Well, his reactions when plays are coming towards him. He knows how to jump off the line at the right time. He meets them. And also the reaction saves are pretty good so far. But what he does poorly is the command in the box. You mentioned that that goal
in the air specifically.
In the air specifically. And
doesn't disrupt crosses, has trouble, the mistakes he's already made, and also
the Gila Vogie one absolutely is spot on. And then obviously the drop balls he's had in 2 to 3 games thus far. This game he caught everything, which is nice. But yeah, the command of the air. And this game, I did see him a lot more vocal with the defense than he had been previously, which is good. I think he's learned. Maybe Kramer got in his head like, hey, you need to yell at the team. Let them know what you want. Don't just make one word. Because we talked about this last week. He probably just said one word to Kral.
Yeah, the mistake. Yeah.
So, but yeah, he played a lot better. I think he had a better game, and I think Kral had a better game, despite he's a yellow card or red card waiting to happen.
Yeah.
He played better than he did the mistakes he made against Gladbach.
Yeah, and Schwolow clearly, obviously, more of the Fairman profile than the Neuer profile, but
Yes.
likewise suspect in distribution and stuff. I don't know. So I think the thing for us is like we don't really expect him to do that, and we know that if we have Tirada in the lineup, we are going to play a lot of hoofballs and try to have him with the hold up play and taking those out of the air and bringing people into the into the transition moments. But we just need him to be solid at the back and save the shots he's supposed to save. If he can have a game like this where he saves maybe a couple that he didn't necessarily have to, and limits the mistakes, I think we'll all be fine with it. It's just those moments that he had, like that Frazel had a couple of, and Nubel had some of, and Fairman had some of, where we're just giving away goals for no reason. We just can't have that. I think this squad, it may be good enough to stay up. We'll see, but to the extent that we have moments like that the first couple of weeks, where it's going to make it a lot harder for us to do that. Those are just kind of things we can't happen. So once again, credit to him for bouncing back and much better performance this week.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see what we do against Union Berlin. I'm curious what the lineup is again. But yeah, it's a good opportunity here to kind of bounce back and really make a bigger statement than we've making so far. I mean, so far we've showed ourselves fairly decent, looked fairly competent, especially the Gladbach game, perennial top 4 team that we drew 2-2. So, and a fully deserved 2-2 at that. But we'll see how we do going forward. And I'm excited to see how the next couple weeks go. I think what was I saying I was talking about something in the live stream. I don't remember anymore. Gerald Asamoah, he appeared on Doppelpass on Sport 1 on the show there, and I haven't got to watch the whole episode. I wanted to watch it, but it's good to have him on there because it had obviously Armin Vey, who's on there, who's been perennial manager in the Bundesliga on there, and Stefan Effenberg, which that's tennis player, but they're breaking down how this is right after the Gladbach game. So this was before the game against Wolfsburg, and they're talking about how Schalke are doing right now. They're asking questions about how Kramer's doing and stuff like that. And Gerald Asamoah was saying some interesting things, but I want to watch the whole video before I make any comments on that. But it's just something for those who are interested. Look up the Doppelpass and Gerald Asamoah. I think Gerald Asamoah even tweeted it out. Definitely give it a watch and check it out, because I think it's a interesting insider look to see from Gerald Asamoah's point of view, because obviously he's the team manager, he's not the coach or anything like that. To see how the mentality of the team is, I think it's a good glimpse into it. Just especially for us, we're so far away, right? We're not there living day in, day out in Germany, so I definitely recommend that video there. So yeah, anything else you want to talk about tonight before our game this weekend?
No, I guess one thing, I guess I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I think my biggest takeaway so far from the first 3 games, maybe not as like a team perspective, but as far as like individual player performances, I think the person I've actually been most pleasantly surprised with has actually been Bolter. And I just wanted to give him some credit, because I was slightly concerned about how well he'd handle the transition from Bully 2 to Bully 1, and how effective he was going to be. And I think he's very much looked like he's belonged once again. I think his work rate's been pretty good. I think he's still able to evade people on the dribble to some extent, as he was, and buy himself space to play a ball, like the kind of things that he was good at last season as well. So yeah, I just wanted to give him a shout, because I think he's exceeded my expectations early into the season.
And that's a great shout. I think his footwork is so underrated. I talk about this a lot in the watch along.
But it's because he looks awkward doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because he's so gangly that it's almost deceptively technical. Yeah, I mean,
you look back at the Gladbach game and what he did to Itakura, right? You watch it live, you're like, oh, how do you fake Itakura out? And then you watch the highlight, you're like, whoa, he nutmegged him twice. What the hell? So he's got great footwork, but he doesn't look like he's great doing it. He's not Ronaldinho doing it, right? But he's getting the job done, and I think he's been he's transitioned to the Bundesliga level very quick. Obviously, he played Union Berlin before, but maybe he has a little bit of motivation against Union Berlin, right? His former team. Maybe he can get some goals against them, and will he celebrate? That'll be the question there. But Bolter, I've been surprised. I've definitely been pleased with, and Kraus too. I wasn't sure how Kraus is going to do, and I think through 3 games he's been pretty good. I think the work rate's there. He has an offensive. He has some contributed to offense a lot. Been in the plays in the box, so I've been pleased with him so far. But yeah, those are probably the 2 stand out for me. And I think Brunner's been not necessarily he's been great or anything, but he's been consistent. We haven't had consistency in a while, and yes, 3 games, but I'd like what I saw from him defensively. He's probably
there haven't been a lot of bad moments that I've noticed from him or anything at the back for the most part. He's been,
he's been targeted almost every game. Have you noticed that? They've been going down our left wing every game.
Well, particularly early on, I feel like maybe I'm wrong about that, but it seems like that's where they go early against us. But
and he's held his own. So
like I said, there haven't usually when a defender is quiet, that's usually a good thing as opposed to an offensive player. You know what I mean? Like if you're not noticing him that much, it means because he's probably not out of position that often and he's not getting smoked and doing a decent job overall. So maybe not being having the impact like we said that Ollion's having offensively, but playing a role nonetheless.
And I think another underrated aspect of Brunner is his size, because in the past we've had a lot of small right backs that have been getting pushed around with the bigger guys, and Brunner's a pretty big guy. Yeah. And or even what's the Scottish guy we just had? I can't think of his name. What's his name?
John Joe Kenny.
John Joe Kenny. He was getting pushed around a lot too because of his size.
Maybe.
Yeah. But Brunner is a big guy, and so he keeps guys off the ball. He's able to shield the ball when he's in the corner and clear it out. And so he, like Ollion, are good deep third ball in the box. They always get into the box from the side. So that's another threat we have from both sides.
Sneaky important trait to have from somebody in the squad.
There it is. That's how we end the podcast there, boy. All right, cool. Next game, Union Berlin, is on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, 8:30 Chicagoland time, Jack time. Try to go for another watch along. One of these days we'll go to an in-person party, not only in our own local places, but eventually maybe together, right? Definitely gonna do watch along this weekend unless something happens and we don't. All right, Jack. Where can our followers, or do you have any shout outs, I guess, today?
Well, first, well, I wanted to double. So yeah, it's not going to be a problem then. We're going to be good. Because my one shout out was, F1 is back from summer break this weekend. As you know, you and I both big F1 fans. And of course, it's at Spa-Francorchamps, which is my favorite circuit on the calendar. So that's going to be Sunday morning. Make sure you tune into that, and make sure you tune into SchalkeMerica again for more insight, like the value of long throw-ins and other such content. You can find me on the Twitter machine at JMMangan, JMMangan on Twitter. Once again, that's 2 in a row to start the season. Pretty smooth. Pretty happy with my performance on the handle. Yeah.
Pretty good. You can find me at R_KHARMAN. No shout outs. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to everyone who follows us week in and week out on those watch alongs. It's always great to watch with you guys. And so tune in for another one this weekend coming up against Union Berlin. For Jack, I'm Richard, and we'll catch you soon here. Glück auf.